Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Jewish Divorce Project. I'm your host, Noam Aushira.
And I'm your host, Leeron.
Join us as we kvetch
and kvel about Judaism and divorce. From our perspective as two Jewish professionals,
You'll let me know
divorce
when
coaches,
to unmute. I'm sure
and
I'll
two
be
Jewish
fine.
parents.
Exactly.
Lots of experience
All right.
and plenty of opinions.
Talk in a bit.
Thank you. So how goes it, Leeron? It's been a minute.
Yeah, it has. Hi.
What's
Welcome
been
back.
going on? Yeah, how was Halloween?
Halloween was great. We go big at my house.
I saw that. Yeah.
We went big. It was great.
You had your skeletons out for everyone to see.
Yes, we do our
None in
big
the closet.
all our skeletons are out. This year every year is interesting because I think I've talked about this maybe last year in Halloween, but my ex, the boy's father Halloween was always a really big deal to him, to us. Before we even had kids, we would throw big parties, and it was written into our agreement that we he wanted it to be like I start the trick-or-treating and then he takes them later. And as they've grown, things have changed. And so this was really the first year that he finally listened and understood, where it was like, listen, he wanted to take the kids to his friend's house, where they don't really know the kids. It's not the neighborhood. And it happened to be on a Thursday this year, which is normally his day.
Right.
And I was like, I am open to whatever, but let's leave it up to the kids. And they wanted to be in the neighborhood at my house with their neighbors, with their friends. And, he accepted that. And so I made sure to kind of give him them the day before. He did pumpkin carving. It was really actually, I'm like so grateful that we had that flexibility and just really needed about the kids. And listen, my son now is, in high school. They basically like to be here and jump scare people.
Yeah.
And I invited him. I was like, you can come by, but like, if this is what they want to do. So it was really nice to have that understanding this year that Halloween is about them and it's not about your time or my time, but let's do whatever they want. And if they wanted to go there, I would have been fine with that. But it worked out really well. So I was very pleased.
It sounds like it. Sounds like it was a good time.
How about you?
I took the boys around to the old neighborhood. We always like going there. I mean, like the neighborhood when we were, still pre-divorce. And that's got nothing to do with like sentimentality of the house or anything like that, although the boys like going there. And I think they like hoping that the new people are around so they could say like we once lived here. But that happened to not be the case this time. They just left candy, in a bowl on their porch. But we went around the old neighborhood primarily because it's an amazing place. I mean, the trick-or-treating is always great there. People do a wonderful job with the lawn decorations. And we had a fantastic time. Both the boys had their costumes and we just hit up the whole area. It was great. It was Thursday's my day, so I just had to do it. And I took them around and it was great. There was no major discussion to be had or anything like that. Admittedly, I felt lonely kind of like doing that. I wish I had like a group of parents that I was walking around with and, had a little flask with me or something like that, just to kind of make it a little bit more bearable. Because, you see that there are a lot of groups that are doing that. And it would be nice to kind of have my kids together with other people's kids. And me also together with other grown-ups too, just going around and walking the evening and getting candy and I mean, it felt lonely, but it was nice nonetheless.
And let's not, maybe we have a good situation, but it is hard for a lot of families to share the kids during this holiday. And I think that's a really important thing. It's kind of like you get to a point where you're like, yay, I get to be with my kids, but there's certain holidays that you wish you had that another partner there for, or something, to have that adult experience to like laugh make jokes about costumes or, things like that are more adult. I find that now that my son's getting older, I mean, I had a bunch of teenage boys here. I was thoroughly entertained.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
By them.
It must have been an academic
gets,
conversation to say the least.
He gets the jokes, so it's a little more fun now the older he gets. So,
Yeah, I had the boys over, we got to just talk about election day briefly and see how that was going. But also about this fight that happened with Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. I invited my guy friends over for that. That was a good time, had it with the boys. I
had a house full of boys for that too.
Yeah, that was a fun endeavor. I'm surprised we didn't destroy the whole place. but it was just a good night, a good evening with the guys. So I know about that energy that you're talking about. I really do. Yeah. Yeah. How has this whole presidential election been for you? I mean, not that like we needed to talk about it in depth, but like, have you had any discussions with your ex over it? Like, have the kids seen you upset or anything? Are you upset? How are you feeling?
No, you know what? I'm kind of like, it is what it is. I'm so focused on everything else happening in the world that I'm just
Yeah.
like, my focus has been in that. But it's been interesting. Their father is very, very strong on his views and has been trying to really put his opinions on the kids a lot. And I'm very much like, listen to both sides. You should just educate yourselves and learn about everything. And on the actual election day, I wasn't with him. I was traveling. I was in Nashville, Tennessee. So
Yeah.
that was a really interesting experience,
Yeah.
being in Nashville. And then I was in New York after that. So I got to experience kind of a different, demographic of people than what I was used to. But yeah, I mean, we're all just, uh, it is what it is. We've had so much other stuff going on. My son dealt with some like anti-Semitism at school.
Oh
And
no.
so our focus has really been on elsewhere,
Yeah.
in all honesty.
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
feel?
You know, I'm bummed. I'm bummed. Yeah, I didn't want Trump to be president again. I don't mind sharing that. I'm not putting anyone else in a position to answer that question either, but I was hoping for a different outcome, and I'm still kind of really curious about how all this got to be. My ex and I didn't really do a lot of talking about it or sharing our thoughts. I think she and I were probably going to vote the same way. So there was no reason to really kind of, do anything like that. There's still the results, she seemed to be upset. So, I wanted to be compassionate to that, but, and tried to just make the boys aware so they could also really understand the gravity of the situation. Um, but that was really it. There hasn't been much conversation about it afterwards, other than to be aware and to stay vigilant and to, speak out when we really need to. But otherwise, we haven't really talked about it beyond that. And, did you think you and your ex should be on the same page in talking about this stuff? Like,
Listen, I had a little bit of trauma because when it was the Trump and Hillary
yeah, yeah.
election, that was right around the time when our marriage was not,
Oh,
and that was one of the things that was like, holy moly, I didn't even realize how different our views were.
right,
I was very much Hillary, he was very much Trump, and it really affected our marriage, honestly. And it
right.
was really hard, and it brought up so many things, just highlighted even more issues and just validated even more why we weren't going to be able to stay together. Um, and then we split a couple years later.
Yeah,
So this election was bringing back a lot of that. And so I just did not even talk to him. I didn't want to get involved in it with him at all. I knew where he stood. I just didn't like how strong he was putting his opinions on the kids,
sure,
because I wasn't doing that. I
sure.
wasn't, you know, so, you know, Liam's, my little one's still young, and he's just kind of like gonna do whatever mom and dad do, kind of a thing. And he
Right.
was like, "Oh, dad and mom are different, and
Yeah,
they know we are very different in many ways, right?"
right, right.
It was just kind of
I hear
like,
you.
it is what it is. But my older son is in high school. He's learning a lot about government. So it was really interesting for him to watch. I made him watch both the Republican and the Democratic, I made him
Debates.
watch
Yeah.
everything and the debates. And so I just thought it was a really good, interesting opportunity for him to see how different our views were. And he saw both sides at times. I didn't feel it was healthy for him to really take one strong side and feel like I'm like mom or I'm like dad. I really wanted him to be able to try to appreciate everybody's views.
It's interesting how this whole thing, and I think our guest, Aurisha Smorlarski, I mispronounced that terribly. I'm going to say it again. Our guest, Aurisha Smorlarski, who will be joining us in just a moment. I wonder what she'll have to say about this whole topic and how you discuss it with an ex, or even do you discuss it with an ex. But, it's fascinating how politics really divides the country. And yet, seeing that your parents can have two different views right, through divorce in some ways, right, means that there can be a unifier in the political arena, right? At least in hopefully a safe way. It sounds like you
Well,
guys modeled that. So
well, listen, this election and this time right now we're in is different than it's been in the past. I mean, I remember like I think in history there have been times where people in a household, the husband and wife, the mom and dad aren't necessarily one's a Democrat, one's a Republican,
right.
and okay, but this is just like everybody's so strong in their own side and opinion this time, so it's different, you
Well,
know.
but no, but there was a lot of marketing that went out a couple days before the election, talking to women specifically about how it's okay to differ from your husband when you go into the voting booth.
Yeah.
Like women speak this unspoken language with each other about this sort of thing. So, you know, sometimes you don't talk about that. You think your parents vote the same, but really there's a big difference that goes on there. And these should be things that couples should be able to talk about. There shouldn't be secrecy like this, right? So it's at least that's my understanding. But anyway, let's bring in
I
our
do.
guest.
Wait, really
What?
quick before we do, I just wanted to
Yeah,
say, and this is something that we could talk about with her, but
yeah.
I have noticed a real surge in my a lot of more coaching clients lately. And I'm wondering if it has to do with the election, what's happening in the world. But I will say it's I've been having some really interesting conversations with clients about co-parenting.
Hmm.
And I'm so excited to talk about this with Aurisha because I've been really focused on this whole concept of these expectations of wanting your spouse, your ex-spouse to now be this certain co-parent and like people getting mad. He doesn't read emails and he doesn't do, and I'm like, did he ever do that when you were married? And now my whole focus is kind of like, if you're not co-parenting when you're married, why are you expecting them to co-parent when you split up? And I am guilty of that 100%. So I've actually now been thinking a lot of like all of these things that I get so frustrated with my ex for not doing. I'm like, he never had the chance or needed to do it when we were married. So that's been like on my mind, and I'm so excited we have Aurisha because I think it's going to be it falls into what she talks about, but just this idea of these expectations of co-parenting
Uh,
when you were never really truly co-parenting when you were married,
this
if
group of
any.
folks that I worked with at the Jewish divorce camp a couple weeks ago, I'm still in touch with over WhatsApp. We have a group chat. We were just talking about that, about, expectations. What are those that we put on our exes? And a lot of those expectations are set internally and our own to bear and deal with. And we can't put those on our exes because that just leads to problems, right? So like, where do you draw the line on that? And how do you have realistic expectations for your ex? Fantastic, fantastic,
Just
fantastic
been this
point.
trend with so many of my clients lately.
So let's
So
do that. Let's hear from the wisdom of what's out there. Let's hear from Aurisha Smorlarski. Aurisha, please join us in the conversation now. We would love to have you do that. Welcome to the Jewish Divorce Project, Aurisha.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure already listening to your conversation. So I'm excited to join in.
Well, I'm glad it was entertaining and thought provoking in some way.
Absolutely.
Why don't we let me read your bio, then we can get right into the conversation.
Sounds good.
Aurisha Smorlarski, master's and licensed marriage and family therapist, is a certified co-parenting coach, mediator, and an award-winning author of Cooperative Co-Parenting for Secure Kids, the attachment theory guide to raising kids in two homes. As a mother and co-parent herself, she intimately understands the complexities faced by parents navigating divorce or separation. With over 15 years of experience, Aurisha specializes in fostering cooperation and security in co-parenting dynamics. She's been featured in Vogue, Psychology Today, to Huffington Post, Parents, and more. Welcome, Aurisha, to the Jewish Divorce Project. It's wonderful to have you.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here.
I think we need to start doing like background music. Like when we say welcome to the Jewish Divorce Project, we need to have like a laugh track or like people going like in the background. That would be nice.
Yeah, we all need our own cheer team with us, don't we?
Sometimes I think.
You know.
What do you think about that conversation that we were just having in terms of the election, right? And how do you coordinate these things with your ex?
That's a good question. I think this actually lends itself to a big topic, right? Of like, how do you talk to your kids when you and your co-parent have different opinions or different ways of parenting or different values? And so the way that I have been talking to the co-parents that I work with around this is I do think it's important as parents to teach the values that we have. And some of those are going to be different, but the election it offers us an opportunity to teach, to share, to help create thinkers, right? Because we can't isolate our children from the reality of the world. They're going to hear about it at school, and they're starting to develop their own ideas, even if they're little, right? I think as parents, or at least for me, and I think a lot of other parents that I know, like that's part of our role, is to teach how to think, how to problem solve, how to think for yourself, how to have your own voice, how do you get your voice out there in a way that feels helpful to you. So there are a lot of things that are happening and will be happening with Trump now being the president, in a couple months, things that we've lost, so I think that it's important to share with our girls and our boys, how do they stand for, the values that you find are important. And so that's kind of the way that I would recommend that parents talk about it. And it's okay that they're different from the co-parent, right? Let's say, Leeron, sorry, I'm going to butcher your name, Leeron, you were talking about having a different perspective on that. And that's, so instead of like not talking about it, because then you're emulating, I don't have I think it's important to share your perspective because they're looking towards you for some guidance, but you can say, it's okay that we have different perspectives. This is my perspective, and I'm going to teach you how to think about what you want. And that way they're not mom's perspectives or dad's perspectives. They learn that they can have their own. And I think that's part of our job as a parent.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think it's important for them to know too. And I really brought out the fact that, like, I talked about, Democrats versus Republicans, and teaching them that moment of like, there's different values and different things that are important to you as a child. You're going to be in college in 4 years. That's important to you. What's going to happen like, what are the views that are important to you? Right. And so I kind of tried to make it about, if you were a voter, what would be important to you, and kind of teaching them that thing. So.
Yeah. And also it's like, there's so much more that came up beyond what the Democrats were talking about, or what the Republicans were, and I think you can even move it away from red or blue and just move it into what is important. Like, who are we as humans? What are our, like, and that's one thing that made me really sad in all this, is the loss of like basic humanity, that because kids are dealing with bullying at school. They're dealing with kids in their school, and you talked about it, your kid is getting bullied a little bit for who he is. And yet on a grand scale, we're saying it's okay for people to, to perpetuate this language around bullying, around hate, around, so you can move it towards having a conversation around compassion, empathy. How do we as humans want to interact with other people, even if they're different from us? So it really can open up an opportunity to talk about so much more. And then again, it's fostering your kids to kind of think beyond just, Democrats, Republicans, and that it's stuck in that sphere. So, yeah.
Well, I think we can move on from politics.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about your background and what inspired you to write your book. We'd love to hear.
Yeah. So, I joke around, I'm like, if it weren't for my kid, I wouldn't have written this book. Not just because I had a kid, but because she held me to it. At the beginning of our co-parenting relationship, my co-parent and I, of course, we didn't know what we were doing. We were like completely full of our own emotions, our own needs. We were just like basically self-oriented. And in crisis mode. And so she unfortunately got a little bit lost, and I noticed, right, I started to pay attention. She was like not doing well, stressing out, crying a lot, all those things. And so I realized that I needed to shift this dynamic. And so I started to apply what I knew about relationships as a therapist, and about attachment theory, and how do we be in this relationship, because after all, a co-parenting relationship is just as valid and real as any relationship. And so I started to apply what I knew about relationships, and it started working. My co-parent and I thankfully moved from being more tension and conflict into being able to be more cooperative. And the fallout was that my daughter got back to being her happy, thriving self. And so, you know, with a lot of encouragement from my friends and colleagues, they were like, you need to write this down, because if I needed this information, most likely other people did as well. And along the research, I was looking around on the internet and looking through different books of like, how do I do this? How do I be in a co-parenting relationship? And at least what I found, there was a lot of what to do and what not to do, but not the how to, right? There are a lot of marriage books. There are a lot of books on being in a relationship that's romantically involved. But here we are left on our own. And I'm not sure if you guys experience this, but a lot of the people that I work with also experience this. Is like, how do I interact? And you were talking about like there are these patterns and these ways and expectations. And I think all of that goes into it, is that you think that you still are in the same kind of relationship, but you're not. It's a different set of rules, actually, that's based purely on the child, but people don't get that. And so that led me to, writing this book. I wanted to create, a structure and provide guidance to co-parents who couldn't necessarily afford therapy or coaching and just needed information at their fingertips on how to do this. That's based in what science tells us that kids need, which is security, right? And so that's why I decided to write this book. So that's what the book, provides, is that secure pathway towards creating, a two-home or, a divorce family system that really can help support kids so they can thrive.
Have you found that there is a kind of spike in anxiety with kids when it comes to divorce? Like that there's a need for them to feel stressed out about things beyond just kind of natural transitionary stuff, or that that there really is something deeper brewing in them?
I think it really depends on how the parents do the divorce. It isn't, and I always say this, it's not the divorce itself that hurts the kids, it's how the parents do it. And so I think that with any change, there's going to be some level of stress or confusion or not knowing. And so that's how we as parents can help them, by preparing them, by, I'm a fan of slow transitions. We don't want to create shock, which I think can really hurt the system. And helping your child understand what changes are going to happen, what's going to stay the same, being really present with their emotions so they don't feel lost or alone, helping them have clarity in the answers they ask, and not putting them into a situation where they have to be burdened by the parents' issues and their conflict or their feelings. You don't want to all of a sudden start using your child as a confidant, because that's going to put undue stress and anxiety on the child.
Right.
So those are important ways to, minimize the anxiety that will, sure, perhaps come up during any kind
You
of
don't
change.
want to exacerbate it with your own stuff and mishigas that you're bringing to the situation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And even if you want to be seen, right, but your child is not the person to understand you or see you. Like that's
Right.
where you gotta.
Right.
And you brought in
Right.
something really important when you were talking about the Halloween story, is community. And I think that a lot of parents forget that community is so important at the early stages, middle stages, like always, for yourself, in the self-care that you need, not just for your kids. So yes, for the kids, their friends, community at school, teachers, and all that, but also as parents, we need that support system as a way to connect and help us as we move through this transition. So I think that's also really important for kids and for the whole co-parenting system.
Yeah.
Well, Noam, you brought up anxiety, and I'm actually dealing with that right now. We're dealing with some serious anxiety happening, and
Yeah.
I'm realizing a lot of it is, like you said, Aurisha, has to do with a lack of feeling of security or safety. So, and it's
Right.
it's a lot of the what ifs, like,
Mhm.
what if I miss you when I'm there? What if my stomach hurts? What if we don't have a plan? And so I think that and I know this is such a good tool, you want to try to help the kids feel prepared, knowing what's to come as much as possible. Knowing when, having a schedule, all of those things is so helpful. But I've started just using, I actually heard this on a podcast with Mel Robbins. I started saying when he gets into that, I'll start saying, what if it goes great?
Mm-hmm.
What if it all works out? That's her term, is like, just like you're saying, what if this happens? What it could also just, what if it all works out? And so I think it's the anxiety comes from the not knowing and not feeling maybe prepared or secure sometimes. And so, I know for some kids, some parents want to try to do things like based on their work, or like we kind of figure out the schedule as we go. Do you find the importance of that routine for kids is so important?
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Absolutely. That's one of my 6 C's is consistency, because that allows the body to feel at ease, right? It's one of the main important things in terms of developing a secure attachment. And security means that they can move through transitions and the ups and downs that life hands you with much more flexibility and ease. And so having, secure or reliable structures and schedules and routines in each home and between each home. Now, sometimes we can't make it happen between both homes, right? Some parents just don't get along enough to create that consistency between both homes. But even if you can do that within your own home, it's going to help your kid so much. They're going to know, they're going to be able to, and that's that reliable structure. So I think that's huge in terms of decreasing anxiety. So anxiety can happen because of the divorce. It can happen because of what's going on at school, depending on the age of your kid. Teenagers and preteens are going to be dealing with a lot of school and friendship related stuff. They're learning about identity. And then when the home environment shifts, that affects, who am I? What does this mean about me? Right. And so I think it's important to talk to kids about, that it's not about breaking and that your family's broken or that your family is a failure, right? Because they personalize it. Kids are the center of their own world. They think it's like, it's about me and this reflects on me. And not only just it's my fault, but like, again, what does this mean about me? And so to help them talk about it in the strength-based, empowered way of like, this is all about change. This is normal. Like relationships and love, that can change unless it's obviously a love between a parent and child that never changes. So again, talking about it from a strength-based, empowered place versus shame and failure is also going to help to reduce the anxiety.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Noam.
No, I mean, I feel great about the fact that you said consistency, right? Doing things over and over and over again, or at least the same way, or at least the regularity of it, the predictability of it, provides the stability, right? It lets kids know that in a world that does change, especially with divorce, which kind of shakes the very fabric of what you knew to be your reality, which was family life, right? That those can also change in such dramatic ways. And it makes you not like other people, that there is still consistency and stability in the world of things that you can expect and feel secure by. And that makes me feel really good, because I, have a tendency of falling into these patterns of either making the same dish over and over and over again for them, or doing the same type of things when I have them, right? And in some ways it feels like, man, am I not doing anything different? This feels so boring, like it's so basic. I'm not really putting any energy or effort into it. When in reality, like that's all it really takes, right? And like the fact that you're not doing anything different is what you should be doing. You should be doing the same old thing, like for a good portion of time, just so that they realize that like things slow down, right? And that there's stability.
And also bring things in that, depends on where you are and,
Right.
how long it's been since the breakup, but like having that consistent routine from the foods you ate when you guys were together to the foods that you're eating when you're not, like you're still cooking the same meals or still sitting in the same place at the table, even if it's in a different home. Those kinds of things really can help create that bridge between what they thought, the home they had with both parents and the home they have with one parent. And so that also can help create those.
I have a question about consistency though in the two homes, because you had said consistency doesn't have to necessarily be the same. And I find that one of the issues that a lot of women mothers have is, okay, I'm used to, this is what we do when they come home from school. They have a snack, they put their backpack here, they have their routine, but then at dad's, they can't control how he does it, and he does it different. So if he has a consistent routine at his home, it's okay if it's not necessarily the same exact routine in mom's home, but if the kids are the kids okay, and can they be okay with, as long as there's consistency in that home, if it's different? And I think that that's something that parents have to be understanding. And if the kids are okay with that, like I'll tell you, that's in our example, we're very different in the way that we parent, the way that we run our households. But they know this is how it is at dad's and this is how it is at mom's, and they seem to be okay with that.
Yeah.
How do you, yeah.
I think that's real life, right?
Yeah.
They go to a teacher in their school. Each teacher has their own setup in the classroom and their own, like when you come in, and like different routines in different classrooms. That's how I sort of compare it to. Or they go to their friend's house and they're going to have experienced their friends doing it in a different way, right? So if we are consistent in our home, and hopefully the co-parent is at least consistent in their home, even if it's different, then they are experiencing the reality of life and developing a skill to being more flexible, right? As long as you're not throwing your co-parent under the bus and putting too much energy into, he's doing it differently than me, thus he's doing it wrong. And I think that a lot of co-parents tend to put too much energy into what the other co-parent is doing wrong, instead of just focusing on what they want to do within their own home. And that then the kids can feel, right? Because let's say, yeah, there's a different routine where the kids don't have to wash their lunchbox at dad's house, but they do at mom's house. And so mom is like, oh my God, if only dad did it, then it would be easier to get them to do it in my house. That may or may not actually be true. They might still like not want to do that because that's a kid. But to even think in that way, it's going to get you even more frustrated, more stressed out when you're trying to just parent your own kid. So if you can just stay present with your kid, it has nothing to do even with what's going on in the other house, then you're not going to stack stress on top of stress and meet your kid with that energy, or meet yourself, or be, so it's much easier to stay calm when you can just be in the present moment with what is happening and what you have control over in your own home. And your kids will appreciate that.
So consistency is one of the 6 C's you mentioned. Can you share with us all the others?
Sure. Yeah. So the 6 C's I developed, they're based on the principles of engagement for secure attachment, right? So I mentioned before, if a kid has a secure attachment or an environment that feels secure, they feel safe, they feel secure, they have, a sense of reliability, they can count on their parents to be present for them. And they can know that they haven't lost a parent in the mix, right? And so that's the first C, is commitment. So commitment is really about putting the child first, committing to being on a co-parenting team together so that the kids can see the two of you working together and prioritizing their needs. So that's that commitment is the first C. The second C is collaborate, right? So this is, for us coaches, this is like, of course, right? But a lot of people, it's difficult to work together because of the differences in values, because of the differences in parenting style. But this is where you come together, where you do have, what are your shared values? What are the ways that we want to talk about the divorce? So really trying to get on the same page, because kids really do need you to feel a sense that, you guys are on the same team and a united front. Clarity and communication is the next C. So of course, co-parents, the better that they can communicate with precision, being concise, being clear, respectful, all that is going to decrease any kind of conflict or misunderstandings. Consistency, as we talked about, and connection is really important too. So kids, the number one important thing to help your child not feel your divorce as a trauma is to maintain connection with your child. And what that means is to be present to their emotions and help them move through their grief so they don't feel alone in the feelings. And I think that's something that, even if it's just 10 minutes a day, when you're with your kid, where you really are present, engaged without any distractions, that's going to be so helpful in helping them move through whatever emotions that they're having about the divorce or about their life. And that's fundamental to creating that secure attachment with you as a parent. And then community, as I mentioned before, is also really important because we're social beings. We need a sense of belonging. Our kids do, we each do, the parents, and then the whole family structure is going to feel more of that togetherness instead of division between people. So those are the 6 C's that together will actually create security in the system.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but attachment theory is about the idea of feeling so secure that you can be alone in some ways, right? I mean, like the sense I get is that like people who are have an insecure attachment style mean that like they need to have recognition or affirmation or constant presence of someone else around in order to feel safe and secure. They're not capable necessarily of being on their own. Is that what we're talking about? I mean, is this what we talk about when we say, like when we drop kids off at preschool and they have a hard time, breaking away from us and going to preschool? Like that's an insecure attachment style. They
I
don't know mommy's going to be back at the end of the day.
Well, we would want to reassure them. So the way that I would look at it is, right, there's a secure attachment style where, and it depends, right? As an adult, it's going to look a little bit different than a kid because a kid is developing their attachment style, especially between the year of 1 and 2, between the years of 0 and 1 for sure. And then you can start seeing the patterns. So a kid who's going to whine at a drop off may have a secure attachment, but depending on how old they are, they may need some of that reassurance. Mommy's going to be back, and then they get it, and then they're able to go.
Right.
But the idea of being able to be by yourself could be also avoidant. So people with an avoidant attachment style tend to cling to their independence. They spend a lot of time by themselves. So they learn, I can't rely on somebody else. So I'm going to just meet my own needs. And so that idea of self-reliance is actually perhaps more of an avoidant tendency. So secure is really like, I can get my needs met. I know how to ask for them. I have a good, healthy self-esteem. But I also go through ups and downs, but I know how to reach out if I need support. I know how to talk about it with other people. So it isn't the over reliance on someone else, which is more anxious or anxious attachment, right? Where I can't rely on myself. I don't trust anybody. So I need it all the time from the external, or I can't rely on anyone. So I'm only going to rely on myself, and I am fine on my own. And that's more avoidant, so yeah. And again, it's not that there is a bad attachment style. I think, I don't want this to be shamey in any way, is that it's an opportunity to understand how can we move towards more security so that we can, move through life and be in healthier relationships with others.
I appreciate that. And I agree. I don't think there's any type of wrong attachment style. I think the question I have is, when we say attachment, what do we really mean?
So
Right?
attachment, right, is that biological drive for a child to connect and to bond with their primary caregiver. And then, right. And so depending on how reliable, how consistent, or how available that parent was to meeting their needs, the child's going to create different adaptive strategies to then get their own needs. And these needs are needs for survival, because human babies can't take care of themselves differently than, other mammals. And so those adaptive strategies become patterns of behavior that then were classified into these different attachment styles. That's why the kid who has secure knows that their needs will be met. They can ask for them because they were met with a reliable caregiver who is available in an appropriate amount of time to meet their need. Right. And so someone who has more of an avoidant attachment style, maybe they had a present parent who was present in the sense of like taking care of their basic needs, but maybe shamed them or said, told them to go to their room when they had emotions, or wasn't able to hold space for their emotions, or had super high expectations that if they didn't meet them, they would then feel the shame of being a failure. Right. Then those kids become more avoidant. They spend a lot more time by themselves. Like I said before, they don't have that reliability isn't there.
I see. Okay.
And then they struggle with connection in their adult relationships. They can't trust the connection. Or then there's just to balance it, there's the anxious kid, right? Who may have a caregiver who is more inconsistent or intrusive, meaning that it's all about their emotions. The kid maybe is like normally upset and angry, and the parent's like, well, what about me? I'm angry now too. That then makes the child turn into like, well, okay, I can't have feelings. So it's all about my parents' feelings. I have to either take care of them,
Right.
or I have to put mine away until mom's or dad's. So they tend to like read other people's emotions to make sure that they're safe. And so that's why they're very externally oriented, right? More validation from the external. And it's very inconsistent. That's that inconsistency, right? That comes with their deep need for a lot of external validation to create that, like, I am loved, I am lovable, because they had inconsistent caretaking.
Basically, it's really, you have to work really hard not to screw up your child.
No, well, the beautiful thing is repair.
Yeah.
So we will mess up all the time. I don't know one parent doesn't mess up whatever mess up means.
Everything you're saying, I'm like, I've probably done that at some point. I've probably done that at some point.
And
twice today already. Right.
You repair. It's all about repair, because the repair is what reconnects that interpersonal bridge. And that's what kids need. That's why it's all about connection. That's why I keep saying it's connection. So there will be a rupture, right? Like, okay, my family is breaking up. Oh, my whole life is breaking apart, but let's connect through it. Oh, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
So the child isn't alone, right? So if they're alone, they're going to maybe feel like I can't rely on anyone. I have to take care of myself. I'm going to more avoidant. But if they have a present caregiver who's there with them, helping them, holding their hand, guiding, providing that calm reassurance, they will be able to move through it.
Yeah.
And then if you mess up, oh my God, I don't know anyone who doesn't. Like, I've been there for sure. You snap at your kid and you're like, hey, I'm sorry, kiddo. I snapped and that wasn't okay. I'll do better next time. And they're like, okay, and they don't have to take care of your feelings. They're good.
Right.
And I love to see that you do, I know you do coaching, co-parenting coaching as well, where you work with both people or individually. I mean, my biggest question is, it's so hard to like, and I'm sure you face this all the time, co-parenting where one parent might be a narcissist or a very difficult, person, or, emotionally abusive or whatever. And, do you at that point kind of like go into more of like a parallel parenting kind of a situation? And I know that's probably a whole other topic we can get into. But that's where I think it gets so hard if like one parent is really trying to co-parent with someone who's not able to co-parent back with them.
You're right on. I think that's exactly where I go with it, is like the parallel parenting. Do what keep your side of the street clean. So you can use some of these, good communication skills with someone who's just going to stonewall you, but you can still do it. And you're not going to get a response. But if you're doing what you can on your end, for example, to share updates about the kid, but you get nothing from the co-parent, at least you're doing what you can. And also you're modeling to your kid, even if they're not seeing it, you're still in who you are, modeling good communication. So yeah, the expectation is you can't change your co-parent. They're not going to be who you want them to be. They weren't who you wanted them to be while they were together.
A lot of people got a divorce in the first place because of opposite ways of parenting in the first place.
Yeah. So it could move towards parallel parenting. Absolutely. And it really is about, taking care of yourself. What do you need? What does your child need? And focusing in on that. And that's kind of where people, instead of like losing their power to their co-parent, which is exactly what the co-parent who is narcissistic or borderline wants, is to take the power away. You don't give it to them by continuing to look for something you're never going to get from them. And so when you can start, and I call it in my book, untangling your emotional, your attachment cables from your co-parent, because that's what that is, right? When we're, romantically involved, we're plugged in, we're trying to get those needs met from our person, but now they're no longer your romantic partner. So it's about plugging back into yourself to learn to get your own needs met for you, because they are valid, but no longer looking to try to get them met by your co-parent. I was just actually having this conversation with a client, is like, that's what freedom is. It's not like yay, I feel great and I feel good and all that. It's like, this is hard, yet I'm no longer triggered by my co-parent because I'm not looking for validation from them anymore. I don't need that anymore from them. I can do it myself. Right. And so in that way, co-parenting with someone who's more high conflict is going to become easier because you're not looking to get anything from them. You're not looking to get your needs met, your attachment needs. You're just going to try to do the best you can with parenting. And sometimes it is less is, but focusing on your own, what you can do is key in
Do you
your
think
own.
that's also helpful with regard to the conversation that we were also having prior to your coming on, which was to say that we can oftentimes place expectations on our exes
Mhm.
that are unrealistic, right? Expectations that we know that we can fulfill, that we place on ourselves. Um, and yet we also get frustrated when our exes don't fulfill those expectations. That sounds like what we're talking about.
Absolutely. And when you were talking about it, I was thinking, that's why I also circled it
Right.
back because that is something that I think a lot of
Yeah.
people still, and that's the expectation that they're going to meet my longing, my need to be seen and to be acknowledged and to be seen as worthy and valuable. Fundamentally, we all have those needs, right? And that's what someone who's secure fundamentally feels, that sense of worthiness themselves. And so in separating and healing and unplugging those attachment cables from your co-parent, you're actually also learning to be more secure within yourself. And then you can be more of a secure parent and focus on developing that secure attachment with your child, focusing on them, right? Quality time for them, presence, all that.
I think it's
So,
also fair to say, we keep using the word secure, secure, secure. We talk about it for the kids, but what we've also just talked about is feeling secure within ourselves, and we should pay honor to the fact that like this is a real insecure time for us, especially as adults. And that's scary for a number of reasons. You don't like, how are you going to parent, right? You used to do that with a partner, right? What has just happened to your kids that you're going to need to guide them through? How are you going to take care of yourself? Can you establish a new routine? Can you even manage all this financially on your own? Right? All that sort of stuff. Um, and it just seems to me that like we need to also bring, just make sure people are aware and sensitive to themselves and forgive themselves and care for themselves during that time, like you said, with community, because it really is an insecure time for all of us,
oh,
particularly.
we're in crisis mode.
Right.
And that's what, like, so in what I call the unplugging, plugging back into yourself, it's a practice of self-compassion. It's a practice of saying, okay, I'm triggered by my co-parent right now. What is my need? What are my feelings? What are the beliefs about myself that are coming up that I can acknowledge are worthy, or not, or that are being triggered, but that my needs are worthy. So it's about saying hello in a way to your own needs and being compassionate towards them so that you can meet those. And that's like fundamental to moving towards having a healthy relationship with yourself. And when we can do that, then we can foster and seek people who are also healthier for us. Anyone who's divorced knows that you were in a relationship that wasn't good for you. And so to learn, like, what are those patterns? Why did I choose somebody? And who repeated either old wounds and hurts that I didn't get met when I was a kid, or created new ones, or, betrayed me in a deep way. And so in spending that time to heal and grow and learn more about who you are and what you want, and moving away from old patterns, so that you can create new ones, that's also going to help you as move in your own life, in your own future, and, into your next relationship. So absolutely, I think for me, it was a fantastic time to actually do a lot of that work of like, what happened to me? Why? Where, what were my priorities then that are so different now? And yeah, I did some of my the biggest amount of healing
Right.
and growing that I couldn't do in that relationship.
Right.
Well, I sometimes say that I think divorce is just an opportunity to figure out who you are. A lot of times people are married
Absolutely.
unhappily and they never really take that time to actually figure out who they are now. You're a
Yeah.
different person when you're a parent than you were in your early 20s, maybe when you met. Your priorities are different. Um, I have a very basic question because I just keep looking at the word co-parenting on the book behind you. We've been saying it over and over. The term co-parenting, right? And receiving that title, is it when two parents divorce and they parent together, are you automatically a co-parent? Or is that like, what does that entail? Because I find, for instance, there are times where I'm like, I feel like my co-parent doesn't act like a co-parent, because to me co-parenting means you do it together, you talk together about the kids. And if there is this like, don't talk in the beginning, maybe when it's volatile and it's like, you do you, I don't tell me what to do, I do it this way. And when you're in that, are you actually co-parenting in that moment, or are you both just a parent of this child? What does it take to actually use the title of co-parent, right? Because what does that mean?
Um, I I mean, that's why parallel parenting came in, right? Because it's like you're actually,
Okay.
if you can't parent with someone else, then you're parenting on your own, you're parenting side by side, right? So I think, yes, I think
All
co-parenting
implications of being a co-parent is being able
to
to do
work together.
I think Leeron's point
Yes.
is also like, sure, there are things that you can parallel about in divorce that are insignificant, right? That don't necessarily really matter when you have dinner or what you do with your Saturday mornings or whatever it is. But then there are certain things in theory you should be talking about together as a form of co-parenting style, right? Because you should be on the same page about them. If I'm wrong, I
Right.
apologize. I'm not trying to
No,
mansplain, but
absolutely.
like that's what it sounded like.
No, it's more like I think that it's very common from just clients I've worked in, my own experience, that it's very easy to be like, I'm the when it's convenient to say like, well, I'm the co-parent, I get a say in this kind of a situation. But then like, are you actually co-parenting on the day-to-day co-parenting part? Like what entails, you know, what
Yeah. I mean, I think
makes you a co-parent?
yeah, I think fundamentally the definition of being a co-parent or co-parenting is working together to raise a child together. And people call themselves co-parents even if they're not divorced, right?
Well,
Like
when you're married, you should be co-parenting,
you
right?
should be co-parenting as well. So it's a label, it's a noun, and it's a verb. We are co-parenting, meaning we are actually working together to raise this child. To be a co-parent means we actually embody what it means to be able to get on the same page with someone, to do all the things, right? And I think that some people, the thing is that even if you can't be a co-parent, meaning you're too self-involved, you're, let's put it in the narcissistic category, for example, and you don't want to take anything in, you just want to do it your way, and you don't want to have anything to do with it. The thing is that because there are two parents, that child still has two parents and is being influenced by whatever each parent is bringing in. So in a way, even if your co-parent, the other parent isn't doing such a great job of working together, we are still receiving the child when they come back and having to parent the child that is coming in with whatever the other parent is bringing in.
Yeah.
So I think that like the co-parenting mindset, in a sense, so I talk about that, is like this idea that my child has two parents and the other parent is still valid and important in my child's life because my child needs them, unless there's abuse, right? Then that's a different thing.
No matter how mad at them you are.
And so we are always a co-parent because we should be thinking in that way. The should is this big should, right? Like that would be great. Not everyone does, but so it's a
And you
really
added
good question.
cooperative. So that's taken
Right,
at the
that's
next level,
different.
right? Of
Yeah.
cooperating in the co-parenting. That is the goal, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The how do you do this? You do this in a cooperative way so that your kids really can, because you can co-parent in a really not cooperative way, and that's harmful for the kids, right? Where they
Well,
feel
it's just like you could be at work at a place of business and you have to work on a project with someone. You have to manage something. You might not like that person. You might not agree with their views, but you have to work together.
Yep.
You
And
know?
that's the fundament. That's why cooperative really resonated with me as a title for this, because it is really about, it's like being in a nonprofit together or being on a sports team together, right? Like
Yeah.
there is the goal is to complete the project or to, raise awareness around something or to whatever, win the goal. And each person is going to bring in their different skill sets, right? People aren't hired for the same exact job, or you're not going to get two goalies. You get one. I'm not a sports person, so I'm always like, I'm trying hard.
You're
on the
forgiven.
sports
Don't
one.
worry, you're forgiven.
You're doing good. You're doing good.
Well, you need to, right? But the fundamental is if we all come together, whoever's on that team with their different skill sets, their different strengths, then there's the ultimate win, right? And so each parent is going to bring in their different challenges, and hopefully they're going to raise a kid who actually is really, wonderful and healthy and does well in life, right? That's the goal. That should be the goal. And I think that when parents can focus on that, of like this team mentality versus I'm on by myself, their kid is going to be the ultimate winner, right? Because that's where the attention goes.
We talk about the idea of teams for just a second and kind of switch the conversation just a little bit. I love everything that we've spoken about in terms of creating secure, environments and routines for the kids, right? In order to establish that, healthy attachment style. You also talk a lot about blended families on your social media, and admittedly, that's nothing that we've discussed. And it's entirely possible that it's not a conversation that we've discussed because neither one of us have been in a circumstance like that before. And I don't think either of us are in the moment, but I do think about it from time to time as I'm dating, and I think I do some kind of pie in the sky stuff, and I think we need to do a whole episode about this.
Yeah.
But can we talk about blended families? Can we just go there for just a second? Is that
Sure.
okay? And
Yeah.
ask maybe one question, which is to say, I have like this kind of Brady Bunch pie in the sky way of looking at it, which is to say I would love to meet someone, right, who's got kids as well as the same as my own kids, and we, get married and move in together and make everything work. And I think about also the reality of that and what that would really entail. And how that means, switching schools and moving to certain areas and who has to do what and what kind of schedules do you then adjust to. And also remembering that like the Brady Bunch wasn't about divorce. Like they were both widows as far as I know, right? And they both had full custody of their kids. So they all did
Right.
and could just
Right.
kind of move in together.
Mhm.
So I guess what I'm, like how do these like does that happen? Do people meet and with young kids and make it work? And like have you seen that sort of thing? Or do you now see a lot of people are just like, you know what? Blended family don't really happen until like kids are off at college and then they meet later on and that sort of
I
thing.
mean, you see everything, right? Like there are definitely people who are getting remarried and bringing in their kids and they navigate the scheduling. And, I mean, I do think this is a really, really big topic, right? But I think that people are navigating this in different ways. I think it's important that people go slow and that they take their kids' lead on developing those new relationships. Like a partner is part of our community, but not necessarily your kids' community yet. And I think the slower and more intentional you go towards really, really like allowing the child to develop that relationship with this new person in their lives at their own pace is going to make it easier for everyone in the end if you're going to end up getting married and blending families. So I think that, I mean, there are a lot of things here, right? If there are, kids from both partners, there's going to be both parents are going to need to balance that around like,
Right.
how do we make sure each kid feels seen and validated and that, they have a place at the table as well. So I think it's going to take a lot of work on each parent and a lot of collaboration and talking with the two partners, right? On how do you do that? How do you stay connected with your kid? So one-on-one time with your kid, while also bringing in affection and even love for this new kid where your kid doesn't feel left out or deprioritized. So I think it's very delicate, but when done with intentionality and care, it can be a really nice experience. And it really is about like, it can be where the children feel more love, that they have more adults in their lives, more sibling energy in their lives. And that's the hope. Right?
Yeah. I know I'm listening to you and I'm like thinking about, oh wait, but then each person also has exes and they have schedule. I mean, personally, it just I just the minute I start imagining all the logistics of it, I get so turned off and I'm like, that sounds like so much work. It's just kind
It
of
is a lot of work. It's a little bit, I
yeah.
laugh a little bit when I talk to people who are doing this. I'm like, it's kind of like you're in a poly relationship with someone you're not, but it's not sexual. It's just like you have another relationship with your co-parent that now with your new partner, or now with, let's say, your long-term new partner, your new partner. Yeah. You have to let them know that this relationship already exists. It's not going away, right? The co-parenting one, if it's good, if it's not, for your kid. So that's like immediately you got to start looking at it as like the new person can't be a divider. They have to accept the fact that that person is there and be a supporter of your co-parenting system that's already in place, and they're entering into it as a supporter for you, and then being a supporter for the whole thing. And that in that way, the kid won't feel like, oh, you're replacing or you're not, if you're getting in the way. So yeah, it's a lot to manage. And I think people who make it work really have prioritized the system in a good way, where everyone feels like, they're very organized, very scheduled. They work together. They're collaborative. They're all collaborative people. You know what I mean? They see the need, and I think the need is really all the kids. And they if they want their kids to thrive, they're going to want their partner's kids to thrive as well. So they're going to be okay with the exes,
Yeah.
and they're going to help support their exes, even if the ex is like a pain in the butt. They'll be
Right.
like, okay, I'm here.
One way or another, they'll figure out a way to
No,
make it
if
work.
that's your dream, I really wish that for you.
I think it's to be honest with you, a hindrance, more so than anything else, because I think you know how you get specific in dating and it just kind of shrinks the pool even more. And we're not talking about dating this episode, but trying to find the right person that fits that match exactly is also, even harder in some ways. And then also thinking about, like, is that really the target, right? Because is it realistic to expect that I'm going to get the type of environment that I want? So it's just, like I'm trying to think about it realistically.
I'm
I
sure
think
you
that,
cover dating a lot when you talk about co-parenting. That's a huge part too, and how to respect
yeah,
the parents when they
Sure.
date. All of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
whole other
absolutely.
conversation.
I mean, the way I would say in a nutshell, I mean, I work a lot also with people who are just seeking love, right? Is focus on doing your healing, your work, so that when you get out there and date, and when you are dating, you're meeting a good person
Right.
that is going to be good for you, right? And that's number one, and they're going to be good for your kid and for the co-parenting system. But like, it's going to take time. Even you can have lots of experiences in dating that don't end up anywhere, that could feel very nurturing and make you feel alive and connected to others, which are also valid. It doesn't have to just be about like, are
Agreed.
they going to become a family member? So dating has lots of different purposes. Right now it's just for you. You don't even bring, like, your kids have nothing to do with your dating life right now. So if you're dating, have fun, and you'll know and when and if it goes into the direction of bringing it into your home life.
Well, Aushira, thank you so much for sharing your
Aurisha.
wisdom. Aurisha, sorry, it sounds like a very Jewish name. I'm not kidding you. Aura, it sounds like very Jewish.
It
So
is, yeah.
of
It
course I went to
is. It
Aushira, and
means light.
this retreat. It does mean like yes. And I was at this retreat last week, and the leader of it, who's also very wise, was Aushira. So I apologize, Aurisha.
That's
Sorry
okay. I
about
have a
that.
good friend named Aushira. I'm fine.
There you
People
go.
have pronounced my name in lots of different ways. I'll take it all.
Okay. Well, Aurisha, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and your patience, which you've given so generously. We really do appreciate it. What do you think is the message, kind of standing on one foot, that people can take home from our conversation today?
Yeah, I think when parents can really focus on being present and staying connected with their children and staying connected with themselves so that they can heal and grow, they're going to be able to do the same for their children, and allowing them to heal and grow and move through a divorce in a way that they can see this as an experience and not a trauma. And they will become resilient and flexible kids who will be able to be compassionate with other people as they also navigate hard times, right? And so I think that yeah, like I truly do believe that divorce is not something that needs to be a terrible thing at all. Like, I want to change the narrative on that, is that it's an opportunity to, reclaim and be empowered and to teach and to guide ourselves and our kids into healthy relationships with themselves and with other people.
Thank you so much, Aurisha. It's been wonderful having you. How can people get in touch with you should they want to follow up with any questions or employ you as a coach?
Yeah, so you can find me through Instagram at Cooperative Co-Parenting. You can also find me on my website at aurishasmorlarski.com. You can also go buy my book at anywhere you buy books, Cooperative Co-Parenting for Secure Kids. And feel free to reach out. I'd be, delighted to continue chatting with people.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Aurisha. It's been great having you.
Thank you so much for inviting me here.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Have a great day.
If you're interested in becoming one of our sponsors or have questions and thoughts about the podcast, please email us at thejewishdivorceproject@gmail.com.
And you can always find us on social media at The Jewish Divorce Project on Facebook and Instagram.
And if you'd like to work with me, I specialize in divorce coaching for women. I can be found at mydivorceconcierge.com and on Facebook and Instagram at mydivorceconcierge.
And if you're interested in working with me for divorce coaching or spiritual coaching, I work with people of all kinds, of all backgrounds as well. My email address is noamraucher@gmail.com. That's NoamRaucher@gmail.com. And you can also find me on Facebook and on Instagram at Noam Rauscher.